Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be looking at June's exceptional story, Reunion. But as always at the start of a new exceptional friendship, I'm going to remind you that these are stories you get for being an exceptional friend. Not only do you get access to these stories every month, you get access to the House of Chimes, an expanded deck, and 2 candles. And obviously there will be spoilers ahead. If you want to play this for yourself, I encourage you to do so. And without further ado, let's start the story. The Last Orders is the last stop on a bad night on the town. A place one can sit and nurse an indifferent drink, freed from all expectation. It is not your usual locale, but it is a cold night, and you are out late. Tonight, an evasive aristocrat is causing a scene. He is overdressed for the venue and rather drunk. His bodyguard lies on the floor beside him, entirely murdered. The aristocrat is attempting to placate a hostile crowd with a reward if they guess his identity. They seem to have a different sport in mind, however. We've got 2 options. We can intervene. His cheeks display a healthy glow. He must be new to the city. Or we can watch. What business is it of yours if someone stumbles into an establishment not meant for him? Let's intervene here. You stand beside the swaying aristocrat, whose fixed smile suggests a man who recognizes that he has made a mistake. Calmly and carefully, you invent an improbable acquaintance between the 2 of you, and steer him out of the drinking house. The evasive aristocrat is temporarily crestfallen. He had heard that London was an exceedingly welcome place, but sensing the danger, he defers to you immediately. He takes a deep breath when out in the fog. "Good show, that," he says with a shy smile. "Bit in over my head. Poor Havers," he mutters, glancing back to his fallen bodyguard. It's something called the Prince's Enchantment. I don't know what that is, and its tooltip doesn't appear to want to load. The evasive aristocrat glances around and runs a hand through his hair. "I must say, this isn't my usual sort of haunt, but I was on the hunt for the Black Wings absinthe. Not something we can get on the surface." Intoxication has made him garrulous. "Why, you say?" He claps a hand on your shoulder and peers into your face. "Did you know? I almost died. In Prussia. The pneumonia. My quack in Vienna said it was a miracle I lived. Ever since, I've wanted a little more carpe diem in my life," he sighs. "And now my bodyguards paid the price. I suppose you'll have to stay down here now." He glances around him. "I'm not ready to go back yet. And I think contretemps has sobered me up. I don't suppose you know somewhere a man could get a drink." "We could give him a snifter of our own. You carry a bottle of your own, and are amenable to partaking in company. I would use one of my bottles of Black Wings absinthe. Move him towards something less dangerous. Greyfields, perhaps? A good year. Or we can suggest something foul. The youth is clearly out of his element. Best he learn it via a mug of something unspeakable. It will not endear him to London, but perhaps that is for the best. Let's give him some of our own. Why not?" The evasive aristocrat's eyes widen. "Gosh!" He pauses, considers his surroundings. "Damn," he says. You find a locale, private and comfortable, in which to imbibe. The aristocrat smiles as he toasts you, and then you are away. After, in your waking hangover, you piece together what you can. You ravel through distant skies, black, cloaked, and terrible. It is good to hunt together, to have encountered an appetite to match your own. His wings, however, are lined with the fainted scarlet, like the lining of an opera coat. When you wake, unaccountably in your lodgings, the aristocrat's eyes are wide. His thanks is stammered, his gratitude sincere. He is very sorry to be intruding on your abode like this. Now we have red temptations. I don't know what that is either, but if it's anything like red honey, this could be interesting. The evasive aristocrat stands to leave, a melancholy settling over him. For a moment, he seems hesitant, gazing out of the door into the wide vastness of London. He turns back to you. It's silly, but I've always wondered, when I came back, would I be recognised? He runs a hand through his hair, blushing slightly. However, the sincerity of his request is evident on his face. I don't suppose you know who I am? There's a few options here. I don't really know, but we can pick the Grand Duke of Hesse. A cousin of Her Enduring Majesty occupies that title now, if your sources are to be believed. The King of Prussia. We know he was hurt in Prussia, pneumonia. A grandson of Her Enduring Majesty. A man with a formidable reputation and a distinctive moustache. We also know this man has a distinctive moustache, so I'm probably going to guess he's the King of Prussia, but we could also pick an exiled Prince of Hell. He doesn't have the eyes, true, but Hell is steeped in cunning, and eyes, under the right circumstances, are malleable. Or the Duke of Clarence and Avon, the son of the reluctant heir, spirited from London as a babe in arms. Let's go with the King of Prussia. The evasive aristocrat makes a face. I'm not quite that old. He takes a deep breath. Besides, he said that he will only visit London when it has raised itself back to the surface like a respectable city. Well, let's pick a different one, I guess. Let's pick the Grand Duke of Hesse. The evasive aristocrat scoffs. That's sausage! I think not, he grimaces. Oh, he's got designs on Mother's estates. The cad. Mother's estates. Let's go with an exiled prince. We're just going to go through all of these now because they're quite funny. The evasive aristocrat's mouth is a perfect O. Gosh, he says at last. Is that a thing that can happen here? My word. I thought next door to hell was one of Mother's exaggerations. He shakes his head. Wrong, I'm afraid. He smirks. Though my tutors always said I'd try the devil's own patience. Well then, he's the Duke of Clarence and Avon, the son of the reluctant heir. Second in line. Prince Albert Victor blinks, then gives you a smile. Yes! His delight evaporates into concern. Oh dear, I shouldn't have said anything. It's supposed to be a secret. He looks around the room frantically, as though checking who might have overheard. Mother will know what to do. Princess Alexandra, that is, to you. She's down here too, at the Westminster Hotel. Meet me there. I'm really very sorry. I think I've put you in quite a bit of trouble. And you've been so kind. He fetches his coat and makes for the door. The second in line to the throne of Great Britain disappears into the fog. Prince Albert Victor has revealed himself. Against his better judgment, he asks you to meet him at the Westminster Hotel. Well, let's go to the Westminster. The Westminster Hotel sits comfortably at the north bank of the stolen river. Its rows of arched windows look out serenely across the water. The hotel's elegant French pavilion rooftops have been marked with sigils of the correspondence, and the busts in the facades have been replaced with the hooded figures representing the masters of the bazaar. The hotel was only partially completed when London fell. Its decoration is the result of the masters wishing to be certain of its ownership. Well, let's enter Westminster. Prince Albert Victor asked you to meet here. The foyer is candlelit, its fixtures marble. Staff make themselves elegantly unobtrusive. The prince strides across the floor towards you. Thank you for coming. Again, dreadfully sorry. My mother will sort everything, but she can be a little much, so I apologize in advance. He leads you to a paternoster lift, reserved for the most verified guests. From there, he guides you to the hotel's grandest suite at the very top of the building. Inside, a woman sits nestled among white cushions. Her dress is elaborately feathered. She resembles a swan amidst snow. A tiara perches on her coiffed head. As you step into the room, she stands in a fall of silk and extends a hand bedecked with diamonds. She introduces herself as Princess Alexandra, wife of the heir to the British throne. Alexandra regards you for a moment and then turns to her son. She raises an eyebrow expectantly. He takes a deep breath and then explains the circumstances of his bodyguard's accident and his revelation of his identity to you. After a few minutes, she holds up one white-gloved hand. He falls silent. So what is the significance of us knowing her son's identity? My son is a fool, he says, then glancing at her son's stricken expression, sighs. I am sorry, my darling, but you have vexed me. She clenches her hands before turning back to you. It is unfortunate that my son's carelessness has involved you in this. Our presence in London was by secret invitation, the negotiations to arrange it complex. Diplomatically, we should not be here. A small frown appears on her powdered forehead. The ministry, should they get wind of this, may cause difficulties. I would prefer to avoid these, as I am sure are you. We will be in London for several days. I have business to attend to, and I'm afraid we'll have to keep you reasonably close for the duration. Still, my son now lacks a guide. You adopting that role could solve two problems. She gazes at an open journal, already awash with sums and crossing out. I can promise compensation for your time, and as an apology for your being tangled in my tedious family affair, he frowns. If you are suitable, that is. Tell me that you are suitable. We can claim prior experience. Now that is another exceptional story there. The one with the embassy party, so we'll probably go with that, but if you don't have that, you can also say you're your own reference. There is no Londoner better suited to the task than yourself, than your accomplished self. And you have the anecdotes to prove it. Now let's claim prior experience. The princess's stern brow knits. Where? Oh, from down there? And they came here? She turns to her son. Fancy, London before Copenhagen. Albert Victor gives you a sheepish grin. Ignore her. She's a terrible snob. We hear such interesting things have been happening all the way down there. Perhaps you had something to do with it. The princess gives him a wintry smile. Well, at least your guide has experience. I dare say after such exceptional visitors, a mere prince will be no trouble at all. Seemed easy enough. The princess's hand alights on a nearby service bell. You dine together on clams and champagne, imported at what must have been nose-bleeding expense. The princess finishes less than half of hers and spills the champagne absent-mindedly. Albert Victor clears his plate. At last, the princess seems ready to retire, and to leave you and her son to your own devices. Let's make our exit. The prince is keen to be away. The princess waves a hand airily. All I ask is that you report to me each evening, and remember to be back here on the 4th morning, Tuesday. I believe you still have Tuesdays here. Do not be late. The carriage leaves promptly. He does not see you out. The prince, however, is all eagerness. Well, it looks like you'll be my Virgil, you know. Here in the underworld. The prince grins. I already know what we're going to do. I want to visit an old friend. My tutor from Cambridge came down here. He lives in a place called Elderwick. And of course, we must see my grandmother. I have been invited to the palace. And finally, and here his voice drops to a whisper, I want to see a real honey den. He smiles magnanimously. You can decide on what we do in the evenings. Dear, he wants to go to a honey den? Exotic tastes, apparently. Well, the prince's wishes. Prince Albert Victor has 3 tasks he wishes to accomplish whilst in London. As his chaperone, he looks to you to escort him to each. He chatters amicably as you consider each item on the itinerary. Despite his affection of gentlemanly restraint, his excitement is betrayed in the tremor in his hands and the catch in his voice. Well, I think we should probably not go to the Queen after going to a honey den. So let's start with escorting him to the Shuttered Palace. The gates of the Shuttered Palace yawn open. Greying footmen wait to escort you inside. Beside you, the prince fidgets with his cuffs. I hope I'm what she expects. Am I being too loud? I hear she hates noise. Should I whisper? What if she's going deaf? The aged chamberlain hushes the prince as he beckons you forward and towards a pale door, unobtrusively located in a side wing of the palace. Prince Albert Victor has an invitation and you are his guest. Upstairs, sound falls away as you step into this forlorn family wing. Somewhere near, you can hear footsteps on thick carpet. A clock chimes in thick, weathered rhythm. A glass is dropped. Hushed whispers are followed by the sound of a brush pan and the crunch of shards being swept away. The prince takes a deep breath and gives you an ironical glance. My home, he whispers with a grin. Then the aged footman is leading you up a thick carpeted stair and into a dimmed lamplight of the upper chamber. You find yourselves in an austere library furnished with the careful bibliography. A fire roars in the hearth. The room is a chill. A carriage clock on the mantelpiece scythes away the seconds, then the minutes, then the hours. The footman instructs you to remain until Her Enduring Majesty is ready. The prince fidgets, however. He reads and discards various titles: sport and horsemanship, land cultivation, and finally, romance. The clock ticks on. 2 options. We can wait. The prince has been promised an audience. Surely that promise will be kept any time now. Or we can explore the Shuttered Palace. Take advantage of your being left alone. I am not going to mess around in the palace. Let's wait. The prince contents himself with an old periodical, whose scientific conclusions he finds widely improbable. The hours tick on. The door to the library opens several times. No one enters. You catch sight of servants looking in from the mirror. A living member of the family in residence must be an event. Damn it, really? Okay, I'm gonna wait again. I'm gonna follow this through. As the gaslights are heightened, several chamberlains enter and begin to arrange a desk near the great window. When the prince inquires what is happening, you are informed that this is the hour when the consort would engage in correspondence. Pens are arranged, inkwells filled. Then the chamberlains leave. No one enters the room. An hour later, they return to clear away the desk. That's because isn't the consort dead? Well, kind of dead. Kind of not actually dead, but pretty dead. The reason that the deal was made and London was fallen... Oh, you know what, never mind. They're making me wait. This is my idea of hell. I'm gonna carry on waiting. The prince is rifling through the consort's desk. He uncovers a hidden tray. Sheafs of yellowing letters stashed within. He reads for a moment, and then seals them up again. His eyes are reddening. Outside you hear the rush of feet. Servants moving along the corridors, covering paintings and windows. Clocks go silent. A bell chimes once, and then all sound dies away. Leave? The hour has come and gone? The princess's audience will not be granted? Well, how rude. Definitely rude. Prince Albert Victor gazes around the chamber. Its high walls, the paintings of his many forebears, grey-faced and austere. The clock chimes another hour. Late. He runs a hand through his hair, watching the fall of a few golden hairs with dismay. There is a mirror facing you. Within its polished depths, you see the prince's expression, a brief anguish dimming to a visible disappointment. And you can also see the other face behind him, just beyond the doorway, in a shadowed room beyond. Her lined face is stern, unmoving, but fixed upon the prince. I'm guessing that would be the Empress. When you turn around, the woman is gone and the door is shut. Prince Albert Victor gives you an embarrassed smile. Sorry about that. Lost control of myself a little. It won't happen again. He shakes his head, taking one last glance around the library. Shall we be off? I'm sure there's more fun we could be having elsewhere. We can tell the prince it was only a glimpse, but perhaps this time needn't be a complete waste. Or we can not tell the prince it was merely a glimpse and nothing more. This picture makes me feel that the prince's enchantment is not a good thing. There's something else going on here that I don't know about, but honesty is the best policy, so let's tell him. The prince's eyes widen. He goes to the door and finds it locked from the other side. But you saw her. She was here. Then why not? He glances around at the portraits in the room. Those of his grandfather, chestnut-haired and handsome. The prince catches sight of himself in the mirror. He looks away. I suppose it might have been. Well, I don't think I can imagine how it is for her. He chews his lip for a moment. But she wanted to see me. I suppose that will have to be enough. Together you depart the palace, in thoughtful silence. We've increased the enchantment to 2. But I think we need to go back to speak to Alexandra. We can meet the Princess Alexandra with Albert Victor. Perhaps you'd rather keep him at your side, or we can take the meeting alone. The princess may be more forthcoming without her son present. This will, of course, leave him to his own devices. This may increase the prince's enchantment or his red temptations, making me feel like both of these things are bad. Let's take the meeting with him and see what happens. The prince gives you an encouraging nod as you enter the grandeur of the Westminster. I'll echo whatever you say to Mater. No need to upset her with too much truth, he says with a wink. Don't worry, I won't jeopardize your reward. After all, this is my mess. The princess greets you carefully. She does not offer you her hand to kiss, perhaps because it is so weighed down with rings. After a perfunctory exchange of pleasantries, she is eager to get to business. How was the prince's excursion? So we can dissemble. Tell her only what she would like to hear. That all is well, and leave out all the things that might give her cause for concern. We can tell the truth. Perhaps you have nothing you wish to hide. Perhaps you think it best she knows all that occurred. I am going to say the truth here. She was there? What rot she must have put in his head. Always the hideous old spider. Even in days of sunlight. Oh, you say it was only a glimpse, but I promise you she will have her ways. Alexandra reaches for her champagne. I had assumed this visit was just to remind us of our place, an empty audience chamber. But I see I have been foolish. She wants her claws in my boy, no doubt. And now we have 3 princesses' concerns. Alexandra settles back into her seat. She has a tray of Belgian chocolates before her. She allows you to select one. She takes 3, leaning back to better observe you. I have not been in London in a very long time. My last visit was brief but memorable. I'm glad to have this chance to speak to a Londoner. She waves a hand airily. Since you are chained to my son, thanks to his discarding of anonymity, the least I can do is answer a question. Should you have one? Right, I'm going to assume we only have one of these that we can ask right now. So we can ask about the prince, who knows him better than his mother. We can ask about her flight. She escaped the fall of London. How? We can ask about the surface. What is her life like above? We can ask about the royal family. She must have spent a great deal of time with them once. Or we can ask why she is in London. Why has she come down here with the prince? I am pulled towards asking why she is here. The princess covers her discomfort in disdain. A vulgar question, she says. I have business down here on occasion. I do not relish the task, but a woman in my position has obligations. Her lips thin. She takes a sip of champagne from a nearby glass. As for my son, she pauses for a moment. His grandmother requested his presence. She has not done so before. Her fingers flex. Ask me something else. Do. I do not wish to speak of this any further. Okay, not that one then. So we got that question and a free one. So let's ask about the prince. The prince blushes as the princess lists his many qualities. His compassion. You know that when his first horse died, Victor stayed by the grave for a whole night. He said he was doing vigil. His strength. His bout with pneumonia should have carried him off. His curiosity. He saw that funny physician in Vienna. He told him that it was the red... Well, I've said enough. Alexandra watches her son throughout her monologue. He is never far from her sight. For his part, Albert Victor sighs exasperately at her stories, having presumably heard them before. He does not stop listening, however. The princess falls silent. Eventually, she reaches for a bell. You are dismissed. And this seems like a good place for me to end the episode. So, I'm going to thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. If you picked any of the other options, please feel free to let me know. I feel like this one is going to have a lot more branching paths Yes, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.